Welcome back to another episode of Estate Planning Nightmares and How to Avoid Them. I'm your host, Jon Braddock, the author of Click Here When I Die and the founder of My Life and Wishes, the Legacy Vault, an online planning and document storage solution created to make things easier for those you love. Today, we have a topic that, it just might surprise you, but in the best possible way. We're all familiar with traditional, shall we say, death care, the ways we handle the disposition of our final remains after I'm gone, right? And it's burial and cremation, pretty much the two common standards. But today, we're diving into a truly innovative and environmentally responsible approach to end of life planning: natural organic reduction, which is also known, and you may have heard of, as human composting. And today, to help us unpack what all this means, why it matters, and how it can both be healing and create a better legacy, I'm honored to be joined by Regis Wiegand, who's the founder of NORAZ, the Natural Organic Reduction of Arizona. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome, sir. How are things in your world today?
Things are good. Yeah, one day closer to launching NOR in Arizona, and things are getting fun. Things are getting exciting as we're coming down to the wire for launch date. It's exciting.
Absolutely. And for the listeners, NOR, again, will stand for Natural Organic Reduction, which I'm totally intrigued with, by the way. Regis and I had a conversation probably a week or so ago, and he was telling me all about this and the work they've had to do with the state of Wisconsin. And so we're going to dig into some of this today. But what I'd really love to do is, if we can, Regis, let's start at the beginning. What led you to create NORAZ or NOR, and what was the inspiration behind this unique approach to final arrangements?
So I've been in death care since I was 15. It was my first job. And the specific idea came, it was 2020. We were locked down in COVID. And Washington had just legalized NOR, and it was gaining some traction. And I just heard about it from a friend who was a soil scientist. And she was telling me about all the benefits. And I was kind of in shock that it had passed. And after she told me about all the benefits, it made sense. And ever since 2020, me and a couple of my other buddies, my business partners, we've been slowly but surely taking the steps to legalize this and make it a reality in Arizona. But it was just an idea that someone talked about. And I honestly, once I heard about it, thought I could do it. And here we are, uh, pretty soon to opening up our facility in Arizona. So it's kind of cool. Just an idea that stemmed from a conversation, and I thought I can do it. And that's pretty much how it happened.
Wow, that's awesome. I want to take a step back. So you've worked in death care since you were 15 years old. I think you had told me you worked in some funeral homes, um, working through those traditional methods of disposition of remains. Um, like if I'm your buddy, it's like, I work at the water park, after school, or the ice cream parlor, Subway, or something. How did you explain? Yeah, I embalm people at 50.
Yeah. Um, Again, it was my dad's good friend owned the funeral home, and I went to school with his daughter. And again, it was just, hey, if he said other things, but hey, come work for me. And he was paying pretty good price at the time when I was, sophomore in high school. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Let's do it. Why not? And I slowly became very comfortable in the industry. And at that time, I didn't think much of it. It was just kind of a conversation piece. And I grew to have a passion in the death care industry. And it just all throughout high school and college, I worked at the same funeral home, Angel Valley Funeral Home in Tucson, Arizona, where I learned to, embalm embalm, aid in embalming, do cremations. I was meeting with families, um, pretty much, you know, full service operating the funeral home in every way that I could. Obviously, I was young, but yeah, just ever since high school and then into college, and then everything kind of stemmed from there. But literally, just a conversation. Hey, come work for me at the funeral home. All right, cool. Yeah, and I got some strange looks from my friends and people when I first told them, but it's all old news now for them. But yeah, it was definitely different, definitely a head turner. But yeah, it's you know, happy to do it, and that's kind of how I got started into it.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean this to sound terrible, but deceased people sometimes a little bit less annoying than the living.
I tell everyone I'd rather deal with a dead person than with a living person any day of the week.
That's funny. That's funny. Um, so so we're talking about natural organic reduction, or again, what people are going to hear as human composting. Um, can you walk us through the process of natural organic reduction? I mean, for a normal funeral, right, the body has to be embalmed and all this other kind of stuff. And if I'm going to be cremated, you're going to put me in a 2000-degree oven, which doesn't sound appealing, even though I won't know anything about it. But what's the process of natural organic reduction? How does it work?
So first thing is when we have a consenting family, we will bring the body into our care. We will clean the body. We will weigh, we'll assess the body. We'll determine the carbon nitrogen ratio for the body, which we place in our vessel, our unit, if you will. We combine alfalfa, wood chips, sawdust, and straw, and we calculate the carbon nitrogen ratio. And essentially, what we do is with that mix that we've created and the body, we have organic matter, which is the body, and then we have all the other raw materials, and we place in our vessel. We provide a little bit of water, a little bit of oxygen, and inside that vessel, we create an environment that rapidly accelerates the decomposition state of the human body. So, in about 30 days, the body will decompose and transform into this nutrient like soil material. After that 30-day period, we will empty the vessel with all of the new soil into it. We will sift for any inorganic materials, and that would include like pins, screws, rods from any surgeries or anything of that nature. We would recycle that material. In addition, that's when we would pull out all the bones. And from there, we would, very similar to cremation, we would take the bones, we would put them in what we call it's a processor. It's like an industrial blender. We grind, reduce the bones, and that's what gives you the fine cremated remain material. And if the families wanted that cremated remain material back, similar to what they would get with cremation, we could return it back to them. If they didn't want it back, then we would put that cremated remain material back into the soil, and that would be the calcium deposit that the soil needs. So we would, in theory, be recycling every element of the body and making it into that nutrient dense soil. And after that process, it takes about 15 days, 20 days or so for that soil to cure. And once the soil has cured and kind of dried out a little bit, that's when we contact the family and let them know that the soil is ready to be picked up. And from that point, the family can take that soil and turn that soil into anything they want, whether it be a garden bed. They could plant a tree with it. They could, in theory, do whatever. They could turn it into a beautiful lawn. It's a natural way de uh, of transforming the body and making a meaningful end of life process relative to cremation or burial.
Very interesting. That takes, you say, about 60 days.
Takes about 60 days. Yes, sir.
Well, well, that is so interesting. So, excuse me, tell me, so, again, my family knows, don't put me in the ground somewhere, taking up space. Um, my desire have been to be cremated. But then, they're going to have to figure out what to do with the ashes or scatter them somewhere. And I've heard so many stories of people that, you know, mom or dad, they're either on a bookshelf or they're in a closet somewhere and they don't know what to do, with those. Um, this to me, turning, my body into soil that could be, used in the garden or somewhere else seems so much better. But what are uh, the environmental advantages, if you will, over, the burial or cremation?
The main thing where it's advantageous to do NOR processes relative to cremation. Cremation emits close to 1,000 pounds of carbon per cremation. Another metric that's a little more, relatable. You could drive to Chicago 3 times from Phoenix, Arizona, and back with the amount of gas it takes to cremate one person. Maricopa County, they cremate close to 200 people a day. So a significant amount of carbon emissions would be, saved, would not be emitted if we did this NOR process. Our NOR process is entirely natural. Everything about it, from a natural decomposition state to the raw materials we put into it, everything about it is natural, carbon neutral. And plus the byproduct, the soil, is, a huge benefit as well. Whereas with cremation, it's kind of like you're throwing away. And with natural organic reduction, there's a recycling life element to it, where there's a lot of benefits that far exceed what cremation can do.
Uh, it's interesting. So, 1,000 pounds of the carbon emissions, right? And if in Maricopa County we're cremating 250 people a day, that's 250,000 pounds, right, of emissions. So then some of the haze we see over the city might not just be dust blowing around.
Yeah. So I was telling you this last week. Downtown Phoenix kind of sits in like a little pocket where there's not a lot of airflow. And conveniently, in the industrial zoning area of downtown Phoenix, there are 17 crematories that are allowed to cremate 24/7. So downtown Phoenix, if your audience is familiar with the downtown Phoenix landscape, sometimes you'll notice just like a dust bubble around the landscape of downtown Phoenix. And most people just think that's pollution from the cars or the airport. But what people don't realize is a lot of that's from cremation, those 17 crematories going nonstop downtown Phoenix. And for the people who are not very, the NOR process is different for them, but the benefit of not breathing in that kind of emission or that pollution, and if you could, make it into a soil material where you eliminate all that pollution, the broad scale effects, if we did this at scale, Phoenix itself would feel like a mountain town as far as an air quality standpoint. Phoenix would feel like Flagstaff from an air quality standpoint. And it would be something you could notice, almost immediately. It would the effects of NOR and the ramifications, if it's used at scale, could completely, change the cremation industry, the funeral industry. I mean, a lot of things, but it starts with the funeral industry and eliminating unnecessary cremation. And if we could do that at scale, everyone would benefit from it. It would be pretty awesome, actually.
It just sounds to me like it's such an interesting process, and to me, now, not that I want to go through the process anytime soon if I don't have to, but to me, it sounds like a much better option than what I had previously envisioned. But beyond that, it's helping the environment, which obviously is a good thing. Let's talk about the legalities of this. So I know you and your team have worked diligently with the state of Arizona to have this process legalized here in the state. So, what are the current laws here in Arizona, and what did you need to do to get this legislation passed?
In 2024, we officially proposed a bill that would recognize natural organic reduction as a legal form of disposition in Arizona. And as we went through the legislative process, we got it passed with a lot of support in both the Republican and Democrat side of the aisle. There was no real objections, which was nice to see for once, because it wasn't really a political thing. This bill entertained the go green left liberals, right? And it entertained the free market conservatives on the right. And by and large, this was arguably one of the first times the R's and D's agreed unanimously on something across the board. So in 2024, we got it passed. Right now, we're in this kind of a limbo period where after the legislation ended last year, the Arizona Health Department has a minimum of 9-month requirement to write the rules and regulations. And right now, the end of the session ended last year in September-ish time. So right now, we are waiting for a July 1 start date from the health department. But as far as right now, we're kind of in a limbo period, just waiting to hear back from the health department on just some final like zoning issues, some regular, you know, just regulatory issues, which makes sense, which is fine. But yeah, I'm sorry. What else? What else did you want to hear about that?
Um, so so it's going to be ready and it's legalized now, which I think is a great process that both sides of the aisle could all agree without too much back and forth. What other states is it legalized in?
So it's legalized in 14 states now. Georgia just legalized it a week ago. First state was Washington, then Oregon, then Colorado, then California passed it. Um, Arizona was the first true red state to pass it, which was kind of unique because we had a Republican bill sponsor that passed it, and typically in the other states that passed this is kind of and it shouldn't be, but it's kind of perceived as a liberal democratic um, method, right? But we were the first state that kind of debunked that, and we were able to prove that kind of everyone's for it. But yeah, the big state that legalized it was California. They legalized it in 2022, and they have a 5-year rules and regulation requirement. So technically, you won't be able to do NOR services in California until 2027. But yeah, as of now, the other big state that passed it was New York. They're kind of in that same limbo period where they're writing rules and regulations. And the thing is, that's kind of crazy. Everyone's just kind of copying all the other states that have legalized it. Everyone new that has legalized it doesn't really know what to look for because it's so new. So everyone's just kind of copying each other from a legislation standpoint and adding some slight alterations with the regulations per state. But it's all things considered, in Arizona, there's going to be 3 kinds of cremations in Arizona. This one, natural organic reduction, is going to fall under the natural cremation. There's the gas cremation, which is what we're all familiar with. And the last one that most people probably aren't too familiar with, but it's called alkaline hydrolysis, otherwise known as aqua cremation. And that's where they use high water heat to reduce the body. But that's something that's not very common in Arizona. And it was legalized 2 years ago, but it wasn't, the rules and regulations weren't written. So it hasn't been able to be practiced in Arizona up until now when we passed our bill and we helped write the rules for all natural end of life dispositions in Arizona.
Well, well, and the aquamation itself. I mean, we're trying to save water down here in Arizona anyway, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Aquamation uses close to 400 gallons of water to reduce a body. And then our process uses about 40 gallons of water. So we use 10% of the water and we have a way more beneficial byproduct in nutrient dense soil.
400 gallons of hot water. That kind of sounds like the amount my kids used to go through on a daily basis. Could never get them out of the shower.
Yeah. Yuck.
um, so have any people responded yet who might have either ethical or religious hesitations like around this method? Because I know the Catholic Church originally was not so big on uh, gas cremation for a number of years.
Yeah. So there's been different interpretations of it by the church. Um, like the example, the church in Germany recognizes this as a valid form of disposition because there's a reincarnation element to it where the body gets turned into soil and the soil helps generate life after that. So they've kind of recognized it as something of that nature. The Catholic churches here, or just the church just here, haven't really recognized it just because I think at face value, they're still kind of off put by the whole practice as a whole. But kind of like what you were saying earlier, cremation wasn't received well from the Catholic Church. And then after 20 so years, it was recognized in, I want to say it was 1967, the Catholic Church recognized cremation. So I feel like it's only a matter of time before they will. And, once the church sees all the benefits to it. But again, it's the church. So it's kind of hard to, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But my opinion is I think uh, in the future they will recognize it. And anyone who objects to it now, again, I get it. You're either for it or you're not for it. It either appeals to you, it doesn't. And for those people who you don't want to do it, that's fine. That's your choice. And the people that do want to do it, they're interested. Nice. Help become part of the death care revolution, right?
Yeah.
Bring NOR and make it a household name and something widely regarded as a common practice in death care.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and it's another option that
Yeah.
like when I heard about it from a good friend of yours, I was like super intrigued. It was like, man, I got to learn more about it. And I hear what you're saying about the Catholic Church as a Catholic. I think we can all attest that change does not come very easily to the church, right?
Two industries that are very slow to change, the church and the funeral industry.
Right. Exactly. Um, so what would be and I know you're just getting ready to launch, but in terms of investment, right? I know that if I want to be put in the ground, that investment could be anywhere from 12 to $20,000, right? And I don't know the price of gas cremation or this, but how do those things factor in?
So gas cremation on the low side, if you just wanted to no services, just strictly uh, gas cremation, you're probably going to be about 12 to $1,500, and that includes permits and disposition fees and all that. Like you said, with cremation or with burials and getting caskets, that could range for as low as 5,000 up to 20,000. I'm trying to strategically price this a little more than traditional cremation, just because it takes a long time. It takes 60 days. But if my bread and butter area, $3,000 is kind of in the ballpark that we want to stay. Make it as uh, not competitive to cremation, but almost as competitive to cremation. If we could get it down to 2,500, something within the same ballpark, I think would more people are going to choose cremation just for the element of the price element of it. But if it's within an $8 to $1,000 ballpark range, I think we will get more people that will opt to do this method, just for all the benefits. And yeah, just honestly, it's a new choice. And some people that we've already talked to, some families that we've already talked to, they take pride in doing the new sustainable choice, and people are happy about it. And some people want to do the most cost effective way, which I completely understand. But it's, again, something in between cremation and burial is a price point we're looking at.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, I mean, obviously it does. It's a longer process, but it's a much environmentally friendly option and still significantly less than traditional burial and funeral, and helpful for people in their estate planning. I mean, if I can spend, $3,000 for natural organic reduction versus 15,000 on a funeral, I just passed another $12,000 on to my family that
It's a
we
good
didn't.
deal to me. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I'm sure they wouldn't argue. I mean, my daughter, she'd say, "Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'll take that 12 grand."
Like, thanks, Dad. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, um, so how does this work? So, I know a lot of funeral homes, they have their pre-planning, and they tie in life insurance, and they're selling, a plot and prepaying for a vault and all that kind of stuff. Um, is this kind of a similar pre-planning process where I can make arrangements, pay for this in advance, and have it in my final wishes?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's the same. It's just another option. If you wanted this option, you could start prepaying it today. Um, if you didn't want it, something at time of death, we are a B2B provider of this. So we work with the funeral homes in Arizona. We are not in competition. Um, we thought, yeah, we will partner with the businesses that have been here for 100 plus years, and we'll work with them to enhance the industry. If this is something you wanted to start prepaying, similar to burial or cremation, you could start it today. Nothing too crazy, just another option in death care, from two options to three options. Um, I mean, that's unless you don't consider alkaline hydrolysis, but in Arizona, I don't see that being a big disposition method, just because of all the water that it uses, like we just said. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
nothing's too crazy.
yeah, really interesting though. I mean, again, I'm super intrigued by the whole process. And um, so so July, you're going to be rolling with this, which I think's amazing. And I know you've already got people interested, uh, you know, pre-planning and doing those things. Where do you see, or what are your visions for natural organic reduction in the next 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years in Arizona. My goal is to be, if not the only provider for the funeral homes in Arizona. That would be lovely. If there's another provider that wants to come, more the merrier. Um, for the next 5 years, we'll educate the public. It's called the Maricopa Indigent Decedent Program, where if you cannot afford your end of life disposition, the state, Maricopa, will pay for it. There's a contract that we're trying to, not trying, we're bidding for it in August. So instead of these individuals getting cremated by the state, they would do our NOR process. If we get that contract, that's a big contract. That would be the biggest contract awarded for a natural organic reduction service provider in the country. If we do that, we'll be composting anywhere from 20 to 30 people a day. And that's just for the Maricopa program. Then we'll be servicing the free market with all the funeral homes. So in the next 5 years, I would love, two big, almost like a Tesla gigafactory, but just for natural organic reduction, where we have, 400 or 500 vessel warehouses just doing this at scale. We would be producing a lot of soil, which would be returned to the state. And I propose all that soil would be allocated for cotton farming. Um, if we were able to do that, we could make cotton farming sustainable in Arizona, and we could completely turn a whole industry in Arizona, cotton farming that is, into a sustainable practice. And then once we really handle Arizona, I would start going state by state. Honestly, I'd set up shop in California, Nevada, if there's demand. Um, New Mexico is probably the next state we would try to pass legislation if we keep on this positive trajectory. Um, Obviously, big plans, big intentions, but my long-term goal for natural organic reduction by the end of my life is to make it a regular disposition method that is widely regarded as popular and the most beneficial, and it almost become a household name. That's what I want from NORAZ.
That's exciting. I mean, like I say, when I heard about it, I said it totally changed my impression of, nope, I'm not going to be gas cremated. This is the way I would go. And I have to believe that so many people are going to feel the same way. And, obviously my greatest hope for you and NORAZ is that you far and away surpass the traditional cremation method that we're all familiar with, because I just think it would be better for my family. I think it would be better for the environment. And I'd rather be turned into soil than just turned into dust. So,
Amen, John. Love that. Me too.
well, this has been like super eye-opening for me and inspiring. But before we wrap, is there any message that you'd like to leave our listeners with, especially those who might currently be making their end-of-life plans for themselves or their loved ones?
My biggest thing I preach, clean air, rich soil. That's the power of natural organic reduction. At the end of the day, families, you guys choose whatever you guys feel comfortable with. This is just a new option in Arizona, soon to be in more states, but it's the beginning of a whole nother option in death care. And it's honestly, it's the beginning of something great, I think. And I'm excited to be a part of it. And I'm excited to hopefully in 5 to 10 years, I could look back at a few people and tell them, I told you so. And that would be fantastic. But yeah,
Absolutely.
it's just a fun entrepreneurial ride, bringing this to light and putting all the puzzle pieces together to make it happen has been it's been fun, difficult but fun.
Anything that's worthwhile takes a lot of hard effort, as you know.
Amen.
So, Regis, thank you so much for joining us and for the important work that you're doing to help people leave a legacy that's kind to both their families and to the planet. To learn more, I'm going to post links in the show notes to noraz.org, where you can learn more. It's truly fascinating. I encourage all of our listeners to go check that out, noraz.org. And again, that'll be in the show notes. To our listeners, if today's conversation gave you something to think about, or even talk to your family about, consider sharing this episode, because the greatest gift you can leave behind is clarity, peace of mind, and intention. So if you enjoyed this episode, as always, subscribe, hit the like button, give us a thumbs up. And until next time, remember, your life is your legacy. So plan ahead and make it a great day.